Drawing skin can be really challenging, especially in coloured pencils. You may never feel like you have the right colours or even enough colours to create the look that you want. And it can be super overwhelming and frustrating. So instead, I want to show you how you can create a range of different skin tones with only 5 colours. Hey everybody, my name is Kirsty and my aim is to help you improve your art so that you have the skills and confidence that you need to pursue a career doing what you love. Today we're going to focus on drawing skin. It's definitely one of those things that a lot of people avoid drawing because it can be really challenging. But in this video, I really want to try and simplify it for you. Let's get started. So the colour pencils that I'll be using is actually from the 12 set of Faber-Castell Polychromos, and a set of 12 pencils is normally the smallest size set you can get from most pencil brands. So I am using Polychromos, and the colours that I'm going to be using is a yellow. So any yellow that you have in your coloured pencil set, but I'm going to use the cadmium yellow. I'm also going to be using the orange, and you can see that these are really just basic colours. You have like one of each colour. You don't even have a pink in here. I'm not going to use a red. I'm going to jump to this purpley colour, which is magenta, because if we lightly use this, this can act as a purple tone, but also a pinkish tone as well, which will give us some nice shadows. And I'm going to take both of these browner tones. Now this is a very lovely colour for skin. This is the burnt ochre, and this is going to give us really nice shadows and mid-tones. And for our darker shadows, we've got this dark brown here, which is the walnut brown. Those are going to be our 5 colours, really simple, really basic. For paper, I've picked a paper that's got a little bit more tooth. I'm not going for the Bristol smooth surface paper. Instead, I'm going to use the Bristol vellum surface so that we can do lots of layering in this exercise. Just use whatever you can, but I wouldn't recommend cheap printer paper because that is going to be too thin to take all of the layering that we want to do. Also, I've got something round because for this exercise I'm going to be doing spheres of skin tones. So something round to draw around, and you'll need a graphite pencil as well to do that. And then I am going to show you later on how to do a bit of texturing to your skin, how to add some wrinkles using an X-Acto knife. Now that we've gone through the materials that I'll be using, let's get into the exercise, and feel free to follow along with me yourself. The first thing that I like to do is just get a feel for my colours. So what I'm doing is I'm going in with each pencil, and I'm just going to do a little swatch going from the darkest that I can get with the pencil all the way over to making it lighter and lighter, just so that I can see the range of values I can get using each colour, so that when I do my skin swatches I have a better idea of the capabilities of each colour. Here are all the finished swatches, and at this point you may be thinking, how are we going to turn all of these random different colours into skin tones? How are they going to come together and make skin? That orange looks really bright, that purple doesn't look like a natural skin colour. The only two that do are these darker browns, but don't worry, they will all come together and make a really accurate looking skin tone. I actually want to show you guys how to do 3 different skin tones. I want to do a light, a medium and a dark. So I'm actually going to sketch out using my roll of tape and my H graphite pencil. I'm just going to sketch around this tape 3 times. And if after you've done these circles your graphite sketch looks a little bit too dark, then just go in with a kneaded eraser or a regular eraser and just lighten the sketch up as much as you can before you go in with the coloured pencil, so that you don't have horrible grey graphite lines showing through all of your lovely coloured pencil shading. We're going to start off by drawing the lightest skin tone first, and most skin tones have sort of like a peachy base to them, and then obviously there's other tones and shadows that go into that, but we haven't got a peach colour. So I'm going to try and make one by layering a very light layer of orange all over this circle first, and then add a very light layer of the magenta on top. You want to be really, really light with your shading, barely touching the pencil lead to the paper. And the best way that I've found to achieve this is by holding your pencil further back, because this really helps to restrict the pressure that you apply to the paper. We've got a nice base layer down of the orange. Now let's go in with our magenta and just lightly, very lightly, because we've seen how pigmented it can get up here. And so I'm going to be super light, really holding that pencil far back. And I'm just going to add a layer of this over the top of that orange. To help tie those two colours in together, I'm going to go over the top of that purple with a very light layer of the orange again, just to try and mesh these two colours together. The colour for the base layer that we've got on the skin doesn't look like any of these 5 colours. By layering and mixing different colours together, you can create so many different colours. I'm going in with the burnt ochre now, and I'm using this to work on starting to build up some shadows. And because I am going a little bit darker now, I have brought my position of my hand to be a little bit further forward on the pencil. Because this is a sphere, I want it to be more highlighted up here and then darker down here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to target all of the shadows on this side of the sphere. We want a really nice natural transition between our colours. So what I'm doing is making sure that I have a bit more pressure down here where the shadow is the darkest, and then I get lighter and lighter as I want to transition out of that shadow into this lighter area up here. We want to make sure that our skin has a good contrast, so I'm even going in with this darkest brown tone a little bit, because I want to make sure that we have a range of values within the skin. Once again, make sure that you're easing off the pressure in the areas that you want to transition to that lighter colour and that lighter value. We're nearly finished with this skin tone, but I am going to go back in with the burnt ochre and just go over and lay it over the top of that walnut brown, that darkest brown colour, with another layer of the burnt ochre. I want the skin tone to be actually a little bit more cooler, a little bit more of a cool undertone. So I'm actually going to go in with this purpley colour and just work that into the shadows. If you do want to create highlights, what you can do is actually go in with your kneaded eraser and just use it to lift up some of the coloured pencil, and it can actually give you some really nice bright highlights. Now let's move on to the medium skin tone, and I want to make this more of a yellow undertone, and I'm going to start by adding a base layer of the yellow pencil all over the circle. And because this is going to be a medium tone skin, I'm actually going to do quite a generous coverage. Once you've done that, switch over to the burnt ochre. You can go in circular motions with your pencils, or you can do these sort of pencil strokes that feather around the shape of the sphere. I'm going to go in still with the same colour, but start to create more of a 3D effect by adding some more layering around where it's darker. This is very peachy, whereas this is very golden toned, but we're still only using the same 5 colours. So it really shows what a difference you can make just by switching how you layer the colours and how much of each colour you actually use. I'm now using the walnut brown to really deepen up these shadows just like we did before, but this time I'm going to be extending the dark brown a little bit further up because this is a darker skin tone, and I am going to be a little more heavy-handed with the brown because I do want it to show up more, as we do want to make this skin tone a bit darker than the previous one. Look how I'm doing this feathering technique to really soften the dark brown shadows into these highlights. I'm being really light and I'm just flicking my wrist to get a tiny bit of that coloured pencil onto the paper to transition between these different values. This is what it looks like after we've added that dark brown. We definitely need to integrate these a bit more because this is looking very light and then we've got this very dark brown. So what I'm going to do is go in first with the orange, and I'm actually going to layer this over the top and use this as a colour that will help integrate our base layer in with these shadows a bit more. I'm also going to add another layer of the yellow, and I'm even adding the yellow a little bit again over the highlight. And I am going to go in again with the burnt ochre and just use this to try and transition and blend those shadows. That really dark brown, try and blend it up a bit more into these mid-tones and just try and get everything looking a little bit smoother, get rid of some of these pencil strokes that we can see. And lastly, I'm actually going to go in with our magenta and just work this through some of the shadows, just to add a bit more depth and vibrancy to the shadows. We've done a warmer, dark tone. Now what I want to do is a cooler skin tone. So what I'm going to do is actually take the magenta and first layer it throughout the whole of the skin. Because this skin is going to be really dark, I don't actually need to be super light with this first base layer. And I'm going to layer over the top of that magenta with the burnt ochre. As you can see, the base layer for this skin tone is so much darker than either of our previous base layers. Now let's go in with the walnut brown, and we're going to be adding a lot of this colour. So I'm definitely applying quite a bit of pressure. And it will look really weird and messy to start with. But that's okay, because we will layer lots of different colours and layers on top of this in order to make it all look cohesive together. Now let's remove all of this graininess and really start to blend and mesh these layers together by going in with the burnt ochre with a lot of pressure and really just start to burnish out this middle area. And I am going to go in as well with the magenta and layer a bit of that over the top of our shadows to really give the skin some vibrancy. Once again, I'm switching over to the burnt ochre. I'm going to blend that magenta in with the shadows beneath it and also with these highlighted areas as well. As you can see, our little highlight still looks very grainy. One thing that you can do, and I know I'm going to be cheating a little bit here, but just to show you, you can go in if you want with a white pencil to actually blend out this highlight, get rid of all of that graininess without having to darken it up. So a white pencil is actually great for burnishing out these lighter highlights. As you can see, really quickly it's smoothed out all of that graininess. Sometimes there's shadows in your skin, but then there's highlights within the shadows, if that makes sense. You can go in with the white pencil, actually lighten up part of that area like I'm doing here. And then you can layer over the top with one of your shadowed colours to make it look more natural and so it's not just a white highlight. Here are our final 3 skin studies. But as you can see, at the moment, they don't really represent much. They don't really look like skin. They are nice, accurate colours that you could use for skin, but they still look a bit unrealistic because the skin is just so smooth at the moment. So what I want to do now is take you through a few techniques and ways that you can add some realistic skin texture to your studies and to your skin. To the first study, we're just going to add a few freckles. So I'm going to take the burnt ochre. And the key with freckles is to have a variety of the values. So add some really light looking freckles and then add some darker ones. So try and vary it a bit. And also you want a variation of sizes. So you'll want some freckles to be really small. Let's sort of imagine that there's a nose here, maybe. And so this is like the cheek area. So you want to also curve it with the contours of the face. So as the nose goes up, you want to curve your freckles going up with the nose. And I like to start really light just to map out where the freckles are going to go. And as you get over to the more shadowed areas, you're naturally going to have to apply a bit more pressure with your pencil to get the freckles to show up. Then once you've mapped in the freckles, you can go in with some other colours and just layer them over the top of some of the freckles, so it's not just one colour. For example, I'm going in with the walnut brown and I'm just layering this over the top of some of those darker freckles, and you can even create some new freckles just with this colour. And you will want to make sure that you do some sort of layering and blending over the top in order to tie the freckles in with the rest of the skin. So for example, I'm going to go over the lighter areas with the white to tie those freckles in with the highlights. And just soften everything out a little bit. And so you have a bit more context, because this is just a sphere. Here you can see another drawing where I've used this freckle technique on another skin study, and you can see it looks nice and realistic. Now for this second skin study, I just want to briefly show you how you can add fine lines and wrinkles to your drawings and to your skin. So if you're drawing someone that's older, then I really recommend using something like an X-Acto knife, a small crafting knife, and using it to actually create really nice fine lines and wrinkles. So for example, if you're drawing a hand or under the eye area, there tends to be, with older skin, lots of these little fine lines, fine creases, and it's hard to get them in with the pencil. But after you've done all of your layering, you can actually go in and remove the top layer of coloured pencil to create these little fine wrinkles. And it's a great way of adding texture to the skin and giving it that realistic look. The more pressure you apply to the knife, the more coloured pencil it will lift up. And so if you want a really obvious wrinkle, then you can apply a bit more pressure. Make sure that you're not trying to cut into the paper. We're not trying to cut the paper at all or damage the paper. We're simply just removing very gently that top layer of coloured pencil. And finally, with the darkest skin sample, I want to show you how you can add creases. If you're trying to draw a crease in the skin, what you want to avoid is it just being a harsh outline. And so the key here is to draw a mark in where the crease is going to go, very lightly, and then make it darkest right where the crease is the deepest, and then either side of that line that you've marked in, you want to blend it in to the rest of the skin tone. And once again, here you can see a drawing where I've applied this technique. There are 3 key things that I really want you guys to take away from this video. Number 1, you don't need loads of different colours to draw skin. Number 2, you can actually create a lot of different colours just from a few colours by layering and mixing those different colours together. And number 3, you can actually include other tools into your drawing, like an X-Acto knife, to create your desired textures and effects. So don't limit yourself to just pencils and paper. Are you ready to learn even more about coloured pencil? Check out this video that I did, which is a full guide for coloured pencils. Really great for beginners. It will teach you all of the basics that you need to know. Check it out, it's up there, and I'll see you in the next video.